The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA for mature audiences. It may contain sexual references, time travel references, allegations of bin misconduct, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that this episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who thinks a comedy conversation between two old mates sounds like a terrible idea for a show. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
And Will, this is the Forgotten Project. We're going to open because we've intended to do that the last two episodes and we got distracted by other stories and didn't get around to the whole premise.
That's what it actually, you know what? It shouldn't be called the Forgotten Project. It should be called the Distracted Project because that's the actual truth. It's not like we forget what we're talking about. I mean, we eventually forget what we're talking about, but it is through a process of constant distraction. It's not like we're just talking about a topic and then the two of us are like, so what else has been going on? What's your name? What do you do for a living?
It's the threads. We get caught up in the minutiae of certain stories and those threads. It breaks off into the multiverse.
Just keep pulling at threads. TOFOP, pulling at threads. Proudly pulling at threads for 12 years. Oh, speaking of which, well, I'm going to pull at a thread before we just jump away. Into the. I'm going to yank away. Yank is a good word because we have spoken, and in fact, recently on this podcast, we've spoken about the fact that the inspiration for this show was a show called Smodcast with Kevin Smith and his producer Scott Mosier, and I think we've both also talked about the fact that we haven't really been dipping ever since Smodcast stopped being a regular thing. Kevin Smith has a bunch of other projects, but the two of us haven't really dipped into too many of those. And particularly there was a time in early podcasting where I remember going to see his like Red State podcast
That's
live
right, at the Smodcast.
Yeah, I was probably like his biggest fan for a while.
I think there's one episode you listen to. Doesn't Justin ask a question or something?
Justin asked a question, and you can definitely hear me laugh in different episodes. People have occasionally I do get somebody going, "Hey, did you go to the?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that is definitely me." And so I was reminded about how much I love those times living in LA. You know, particularly when Justin was there. You know, we go to the weed shop and get an edible, and then go and sit and listen to Kevin Smith talk about this film that he was making. It was just a fun thing to do, right? So, hang on, Toddy. So, anyway, I haven't listened to a lot of Kevin Smith recently, but I had a long drive today. We're off the back of me being in the car for 10 hours and
about to record for another 2.
My dog, my dog is also barking a lot in the house, which I might have to do something about in a minute. No, I know you can't, but our neighbours definitely will be able to. So. And look, she hasn't been in this house for a little while, so hopefully she'll calm down. But anyway, I needed something for the long drive, and I have completely exhausted my supply of both Oh Yeah Dude and Never Not Funny. I had not planned for this long drive, so I'm like, you know what? I've got to dip back into some other podcasts that I haven't listened to for a while. And I scanned around, and just nothing was. I was like, I need a long form conversation, something that you can concentrate on driving, but it's engaging enough. And I've got some audio books, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to be able to concentrate hard enough. I'll miss stuff. And then, you have to, anyway, that's, I've got to find something. So there was a Avengers style, Marvel style team up. You know how you can't watch a Marvel film or Marvel TV show these days without at least Wong's going to turn up. At the very least, you're going to see
someone's
Wong.
watching
And
She-Hulk.
I need, or Multiverse of Madness, or other Wong-related properties. I feel like they have a list, and Wong's the guest that lives close to the studio, who's always available. Like, Wong is very much my Justin when it comes to FOFOP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you like to sprinkle some of the other bigger stars in, but you know that Wong is available and reliable. And the great thing about Wong is everyone's happy when Wong turns up. Like, there's never been a person where, like, nobody finds Wong wrong. They've taken out the R. People love Wong. So I needed this. I needed some sort of Avengers-style team up, and I found it. And it was Kevin Smith. Spoilers, obviously. You knew it was going to be Kevin Smith. It was Kevin Smith being interviewed by Pete Holmes on his podcast. And I used to listen to Pete Holmes' podcast all the time and really like the way he looks at the world. And I was like, this will be fun. This will be interesting because they're both really philosophical dudes. They're both long form podcasters, and it was long form. It was like 3+ hours. So perfect, right? And at the start, it's really funny because it's two people who clearly know if they can get into the groove, this is going to be great. But it's almost like they're two friends that everybody's like, you're
going to get on so well.
You are so well. You've got like so much in common. And then finally they're there in the same room and they want it to work. They're invested as well. Like both of them are like, I think this is going to work out really well. But because at the start they're both trying so like the amount that they're just jumping on.
So they don't know each other. They don't know each other. Right.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No. But they know about and of each other. They have probably Pete has more awareness of Kevin, but Kevin definitely has an awareness of who Pete is and had done some research and watched like Pete's videos of like the Batman stuff.
And Pete does heaps of geek culture stuff. Like you might know him from the Batman spoofs, and he does like a whole X-Men series as well. So you'd imagine those two guys are very well calibrated to kind of get along. I mean, I think they should meet. In fact, I'd be one of those guys saying, wait, you guys should definitely get together.
They're also two people who grew up in like with a bit of religion in their life and have like drifted away from the strict dogma, if you will, of the religion to then be invited into the world of like, I guess, pop philosopher. They're both people who like to talk about, what life is about and what the world is about and what is important. And I mean, they're both thread yankers. And there was a lot of yanking of threads like in this conversation.
I love it.
But one of them related, so what I would say at the end is walked away from it, then just wanting to listen to heaps more Kevin Smith and heaps more Pete Holmes. So it was great. They got into a groove and then it was very funny. They had good running bits. They were like it was a really fun chat. And Kevin Smith has this propensity to try to interview the interviewer as well. So like it was a really good back.
Can I ask, because this is one thing that happens now when I try and listen to Kevin Smith things, especially if it's someone new, is I've listened to so much Kevin Smith. We listen to so much Kevin Smith. I know 90% of his anecdotes. So whenever I hear him chatting to someone new, I'm like, this is a story of Sundance. This is a story of when Jay Muse did this. Was there much of that going on?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, icing on the cake, if anything, right? Like themes that were very Kevin Smith-esque themes, but because Pete Holmes isn't really interested in that, he wants to talk to him about life. But also, of course, Pete has these little obsessions, and some of them interact with Kevin Smith's world. So Pete Holmes loves Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but particularly is fascinated by Ben Affleck. And I guess because of some of the Batman stuff as well, like Ben Affleck is just one of those people that is absolutely on his radar. And of course, we forget that Kevin Smith was like a co-executive producer on Good Will Hunting. Like
they were BFFs. They were in the late 90s. I remember, and I've been trying to find this clip on YouTube. They presented an award at like the MTV Movie Awards. It was Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck. And the joke of the bit, their banter, was that they said, ladies and gentlemen, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and out comes like little schlubby Kevin Smith. Oh, yeah. Great. And Ben Affleck's like, what the hell's going on? Where's Matt? And he's like, no, it's me. It's Matt. I'm your best mate, Matt. And Ben's like, you're not, Matt. This is ridiculous. No one's buying this. And Kevin's like, well, we need to do something. We need to do something to get people's attention. So Ben Affleck grabs him and fully pashes him on the lips. And it was like such a great bit. And I always remembered it because I'm like, those two look like best friends. Like you can only do that with your best friend. But then I never saw it again.
Well, as Kevin Smith says, the first person who cast him in a lead, the first person who took him from being the sort of bad boy in movies to being like a romantic lead.
Leading man, yeah.
He lives, of course, has lived for the last 20 years in a house he bought from Ben Affleck.
That he sold to, I know this story too. He sold to him for a really good price.
Yeah. So that's the icing. You would have heard that story before. He lived in it until he could afford it. You would have heard that one before. Right. But so are they still friends is the question. And the answer to this question also comes straight into the TOFOP world and answers a question that we posed on this very podcast a few weeks ago. So I ask you the question, are Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith still friends? So answer that first. Do you believe they're still friends? Yes. And what is the proof that they are still friends?
Well, when he did the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, he reached out to Ben. He texted a number that he wasn't even sure was still Ben. I know this story was still Ben's.
No, okay, so that is a story you know, but I'm going to cut you off because that is not the story. Oh. Think more recent. What's something that's happened?
He got invited to J-Lo's wedding.
He got invited to Ben Affleck and J-Lo's wedding.
That's a step up. That's a real step up because apparently Jennifer Garner was not a fan of Kevin Smith. He talked about that quite openly, that when Ben was married to Jennifer Garner, she did not like the cut of his jib, didn't like the way Kevin spoke to him, didn't like their kind of banter. And he felt like she sort of advised Ben, if you want to be taken seriously, you got to move away from that dude from Jersey.
That guy in the jorts.
And the hockey jersey.
He's not good for your...
You could be an Oscar-winning director.
Yeah, there's a big red circle with a line through it and some jorts that Jennifer just put up one day. No hockey jerseys in this house. I'm not saying Kevin can't come over. I'm just banning jorts and hockey jerseys from the house. So if Kevin wants to come over, he can still come over.
So did he talk about the wedding itself? Well, he would have.
So he didn't reveal.
He would have cast both of them. J-Lo's in Jersey Girl. She's like an anonymous cameo. She's not billed. She's got a cameo. So he would know both of them. That makes sense.
Okay, so tell me this then. He did not reveal a lot from the wedding, but he did speak about something that we touched on a little bit, which was the nature of the speeches.
Oh, yeah.
And like whether Matt Damon, he did not reveal whether Matt Damon did a best man speech, which was very disappointing. I was like, come on, Pete, ask the question. Ask the question that we need answered. Who was the best man? Was it Casey? Was it Matt? We would need to know who it was. It was not Kevin, put it that way. But he did say that Ben Affleck wrote a huge speech, like a proper, because Kevin was talking about just like being impressed with what a great writer he was and like his performance and the way he put his words together, and apparently did this incredible. So we were talking about the idea of, do you play it down or do you lean into, your skills and your chops and your idea that you are performers. So if anybody's going to nail this speech at their wedding, then it's going to be you. Well, the answer to that question is that apparently Ben had done work.
That's interesting. I find that the fact that sort of plays out in public too. Like, I think one of the great things about Kevin Smith, and even though I don't really tune in to a lot of his work anymore, you cannot fault his honesty. The fact that he takes his audience or the public through the making of a friendship and the loss of a friendship and then the winning back of that friendship. Like, he documented all of that on social media. Like when he revealed that Ben Affleck was going to be in Jay and Silent Bob Rebooted, he posted a photo and then wrote this really long Kevin Smith type post about, how the relationship came together, then how they moved apart and how he was, felt like maybe but now his boyfriend was back. And it was just like, I mean, I guess if you're going to be a friend with him, you have to, like his wife, for instance, must have realized early on that my vagina is going to be talked about a lot in public. Our sex life and my vagina will be a frequent topic of conversation on any form of media that he does. Like, do you remember there was an episode of Smodcast where it was a live show. It was a recording of one of their live shows. And Kevin Smith just told some story about having sex with his wife. And then he asked Scott, had you had like a similar experience? And Scott said no. And Kev's like, why did you ever say anything? It's like, well, because you get up on stage and say, I licked my wife's asshole. And then, what am I going to say? Like after that, there's no room for two of us to get up and start talking like that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that specific thing because he does talk about, because Pete references, he goes, well, you're the guy who talks about jerking off to your wife's arsehole. And he actually says, I don't anymore. She asked me not to. He goes, well, I still do it. I just don't talk about it anymore.
I'm going to have to listen to that. Was that a recent one or did you dig around?
No, it was actually, it was pretty recent. I reckon he must have been, it was probably when he was on the plug for the new Clerks film.
The new Clerks. Yeah. Because I saw he did Late Night with Seth Meyers recently. Kevin Smith did. So he must be on the publicity trail. Well, that's good. That's something I've got a lot of time this week, so I'm definitely going to listen to a podcast. But Will, we are going to talk about the Forgotten Project, and I'll start with a short, brief one. This is actually one of our more recent Forgotten Project requests.
Great.
This came through on the gram at TOFOP from Andrew. Says, "Hey Charlie, I've got a Forgotten Project topic. Did Will ever do his Survivor podcast? Outplay, outlast."
So I never did. We got as far as getting artwork done. There is a James Fosdyke.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Artwork
man. That's
for
like
the
cool
episode
merch.
that does exist. And I must admit that if I have no room in my world at the moment for anything extra. But Survivor is back in a week. Well, it will have been back for a couple of weeks by the time people hear this. But I must admit that there was like a stirring in the podcasting loins as I was considering the fact that there was a new season of Survivor coming up. What I need to do is make a list of like other comedians or like celebrities or whatever, that people that would come and talk about Survivor with me, because I can't just do it by myself. And I don't think it's fair to rope in like another person to do every week of an entire Survivor series. Like I know a few people, like I know Hamish Blake apparently is a huge Survivor fan. James Colley, who's the head writer on like my various TV projects, loves Survivor. But I would love to know is like who out there loves Survivor? Who is a comedian or an entertainer who loves Survivor who you'd like to see here? Maybe I could do like a FOFOP episode that was like a Survivor themed FOFOP episode.
This is what I'm sort of discovering is great about FOFOP. When I said, hey, Will, why don't we just like share the FOFOPing duties? Because I, like you, have often thought, maybe this could be a show or maybe that could be a show. And what I've realized with FOFOP is I'm starting to reach.
That's what FOFOP is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just
I'm just trialing shows.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm doing my movie show with Guy Davis, Ben McClay, Thomas Violence on Twitter. He's coming back on. We're going to talk about ghosts because I want to do a show about the supernatural. So like, I'm just recording these little pilots. And then I think once I feel like they build up enough, I can spin them off, but I just need to make sure that they work first.
But you don't even need to spin them off necessarily. Like, I kind of like that that's what FOFOP is. I mean, Dave and I have done like probably 100 plus episodes of FOFOP together, which is just, you could take it out of the feed and just make it its own entire...
DaveFop.
Yeah, right. DOFOP. That's what we like to call it. But like Justin the same and Gareth and Jen and some of those regular people have done heaps of episodes and all of them are very unique to, there's nothing that kind of connects them to the TOFOP universe apart from me, right? And the same with yours. The thing that connects them to that universe is you. But it's almost the best way to do a regular podcast, which is like, let's just do it every 4 or 5 weeks. Or you know what? We might not do an episode for 6 months and then 3 in a row. That's just the way we roll.
So this came into us from someone who calls themselves Abraham Lincoln. I mean, look, I'm assuming they call themselves Abraham Lincoln. But their email, can I give their email?
Can I say this? Well, you watch epic rap battles in history? Do you ever watch? Yeah. Right. So you ever watch the political ones where the running joke is that Abraham Lincoln flies in
on a giant eagle
at the end on the eagle, and then like the last line is always him summoning the eagle and then being carried off. That is one of my favorite tiny little running jokes. Like Like often I will actually go to one of those videos and skip through to the end just to see him go eagle and be taken off by an eagle.
What's your favorite epic rap battle? I've got two. One is the beat. I just love the beat. And I actually could just listen to that looped beat. And the other one is my actual favorite, most memorable one.
I like what's the there's a Christmas one, like a Scrooge. Is it Donald Trump and Scrooge?
I reckon it's
Donald
right.
Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump before he was like President Donald Trump. Like in fact played by the other guy, like the main sort of
Nice Peter. Epic Lloyd and Nice Peter.
Yeah. So Epic Lloyd's the
kind of shorter one.
Yeah. Okay. So he went on to play Trump when he was like in politics. He did most, but it's actually Nice Peter playing Trump, and then Scrooge gets visited by all the various ghosts of Christmas, like past, present, future, whatever. But they're all doing their own individual raps. So I reckon that one is. It's like next level. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is like a thing inside a thing. Like, I enjoy that one a lot.
Yeah, I love Key and Peele as Muhammad Ali versus Michael Jordan.
Oh, so good.
And it's two of the best impressions you'll ever see. Because look, no offense, Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd, like great rappers and funny comedians and stuff. But sometimes the impressions are a little ropey. But then Key and Peele are just fucking like outstanding. I mean, I still remember it's here comes Jordan, big lip trembling. It's just so great. And then there's a horrorcore one they do with it's Jack the Ripper taking on Hannibal Lecter. And it's just the beat of that gets stuck in my head. It's so good. But then I think my favorite one is the director's one, where it starts off, it's Alfred Hitchcock versus Steven Spielberg.
Oh, Steven Spielberg.
Then Tarantino comes in, and then final Michael Bay it's all about motherfucking money.
I mean, again, the ones where they go beyond what the initial brief is.
Yeah.
The one I find, tell me how you feel about the one. So for people who don't know what Epic Rap Battles of History is, it's a long running YouTube comedy series with like a couple of main like rappers who do it, like Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd, but then a kind of a broader cast of people
like Snoop Dogg. Did you think that was weird that Snoop Dogg?
Okay, so this was literally the issue I was going to raise. So for the agenda today on Epic Rap Battles of History, how did you feel when Snoop Dogg himself appeared in the Epic Rap Battles? Did you feel like that was like crossing the lines, like it was a demarcation thing? Yeah,
I did. I felt,
and I love Snoop.
Well,
I felt so excited when I saw it was going to happen, and then when I watched it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Because I thought the same thing about Snoop Dogg, but then I was. I thought with the Key and Peele one, it's like if you think of Epic Lloyd and Nice Peter or Epic Rap Battles as being, they're YouTubers, right? That's essentially what they are. They're not necessarily professional comedians. I'm not really sure what their background is, but they're YouTubers. And so you could sort of conceivably say, well, they're amateurs. They're not, it's kind of adjacent to comedy. It's not real comedy. And then you get like two huge comedy stars like Key and Peele doing it. I'm like, okay, well, that's almost like they're anointing it. They're sort of saying, yeah, this is worthy of, So then I guess you could apply the same logic if it was anyone other but Snoop Dogg, because as we know, that Snoop Dogg would do fucking anything if you give him enough money.
Anything. Yeah. Speaking of crossing the streams when it comes to YouTube content, so Pitch Meeting, which is one of my other regular.
You and I have this. You and I think have the same subscription tabs on YouTube.
Yeah, probably. So for the Pitch Meeting's 300th episode,
I fucking just watched this last night.
The Honest trailer. I'm like,
we are Pete Holmes and Kevin Smith.
This is Pete Holmes and Kevin Smith.
I mean, it's almost 300 out of 400 episodes we've done. But I did literally watch that last night.
Anyway, what a thrill.
Two great tastes that taste great together. Okay, so where were we? So this was submitted by someone who calls himself Abraham Lincoln. And
there you go.
Yeah, but I feel like I want to give their email address away. Because I think it might be fake.
Well, don't give the provider.
Okay.
Make up a AOL or Hotmail.
Oh, but I kind of have to tell you the whole thing. Here's what I'll say. Okay. I think it must be...
here's what I'm willing to say.
Yeah.
It's not Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
And I doubt that is.
You know what? It doesn't matter. His email pretty much says it's Abraham Lincoln. I don't know why I was grappling with that so hard. Okay. Anyway, he's entered this video, and it's about this lifelike animatronic Abraham Lincoln. So it's a bit of a long clip, so we can just skip through to the bits. I have watched ahead, so. It's some kind of, this is another YouTube show, and they're like, hey, animatronics, like Beyond 2000, but for animatronics. And so they're going to take us into this warehouse. And so let's just scrub ahead, shall we? All right, here we go. Will, you are looking at the animatronic Lincoln. Okay, so what do you think so far of what you've seen of that weird looking Lincoln?
Well, are you going to suggest at any stage that it is that animatronic Lincoln that has contacted us, like trying to get some press?
No.
Like, is there a chance that if the email address is saying,
you know what,
has this animatronic become sentient? And
I think you might be right. I mean, not exactly that this animatronic Lincoln, but because I'm just looking at the email again.
Yeah,
and it's almost like a bot, because there's no, all it is, the subject, it's generic, the subject line, it just says, you've probably seen this before. Okay. And then there's no message. It's just a YouTube link. So I think it's a bot.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely a bot.
Okay,
this isn't from one of our listeners. This is from a bot who's trying to spread. We've been infiltrated by AI in the form of Abraham Lincoln.
Well, I can give you his web address now because I don't feel so bad.
You absolutely
it's
can.
It's abraham@lincoln.com. That's what was confusing.
Warning, red flag. By the way, I'm going to send you a fake CBA link tomorrow that you should click on. I mean, come on.
All right, let's watch this fake Abraham. So for people watching, it is a terrifyingly lifelike animatronic Lincoln. I think he's going to talk. Here we go.
I'm Lincoln animatronic. So I'm here today to meet with Mr. Garner Holt himself and look at that Abraham Lincoln animatronic to see how it works. I can't wait.
Something bad we can't explain. Magic is something good that we can't figure out how it works. Garner Holt Productions is in the business.
Okay, so now the host of the show is talking to the creator of it, and Abraham Lincoln, the bust, the animatronic bust of Abraham Lincoln, his head is lolling about, his eyes are opening and closing, his jaw is twitching, like a friend of yours has taken really strong Molly, like has just dropped 3 red Mitsubishis in a row. I don't know if this qualifies as uncanny valley, but it is unnerving seeing this almost lifelike animatronic lol as the host is talking.
Well, here's what I will also say is that, I mean, I guess Lincoln's...
Look at that fucking thing.
I mean, I would have liked them to recreate him post late night at the theatre. So I would like to see a bullet hole in the head is what I'm saying.
Kill it.
I don't know if Booth got him in the head, but kill it. Yeah. We've got to get an animatronic John Wilkes Booth and we've got to get him here as soon as possible.
I mean, it's weird too that so they have obviously it's got, I'm assuming it has like thousands of little cogs and wheels and, things that make the muscles and skin move on the face because it's really got a lot of expressions. But they had to model it on something, right? Like they don't have records of what Lincoln's face looks like. So they've just kind of approximated from a photograph and recreated this face. Or did an actor come in and have that mold put over their face?
It's Daniel Day-Lewis.
He does. He's real ugly.
Daniel Day-Lewis. He's reprising his role. He's come in.
I know. It looks like
Daniel Day.
It looks like the host is giving him a hand job.
I mean, he can't be because there is no genitals attached to this bust. It is only shoulders and head. So he can't be giving him a hand job. Unless they've also, it's robot, but then just artificial penis as well. Just hanging there.
If James Fosdyke was to design an animatronic Lincoln, it would be just a bust and then nothing. Robot, penis. He kind of looks a bit like Johnny Cab from Total Recall. You remember that, the cab driver in Total Recall?
I do.
On Johnny Cab. Yeah, that is incredibly creepy. I guess that was sent in by the bot because he knows you like Westworld.
I guess. I guess like there's a bot that just contacted all the podcasts in the hope that this content would be talked about, and we've fallen into their animatronic trap.
Well, this is so now we're in the animatronic workshop where we see all the heads of the robots. And in the background, can you see that? Does that look like animatronic Eric Idle?
Oh my God. Are they making an animatronic Monty Python? Is that what they're trying to do? They're trying to get
who's that?
The gang back together.
Oh, that looks like animatronic Ben Kingsley.
It does. Yeah. Okay. They're remaking Gandhi as well.
Gandhi.
So that's
Sexy Beast.
Very Gandhi looking.
All their favorite British actors they're turning. Oh, wow.
I mean, wow.
This is what I guess they do in America. Like, we don't have theme parks like you do in America. Like, I mean, there's a Ben Franklin we're now looking at. I think that's a Booker T. That's Harry and the Hendersons. That's Sasquatch. But you know what I mean? Like, Americans have the resources and the time and the public, the market for creepy animatronic. I just think of, me going to the Glen Rowan Hotel and watching that Ned Kelly experience, which is just like they projected faces onto mannequins holding guns. And that was like, that was the Ned Kelly show. And then you look at this, like, Industrial Light and Magic animatronics. It's just Americans love this shit, don't they?
I mean, it's not like we don't have the capabilities in Australia, or at the very least, New Zealand,
go to Weta.
In this part of the world, some of the best. Yeah, you could get Weta in. Mate, do you reckon Weta get those sort of requests? Yeah. Is there a chance that Glen Rowan has ever rung up Weta and said, look, our Ned Kelly, just like in this modern world, we're just not bringing it anymore. Projecting some faces onto mannequins with guns is just not what the kids want these days. We need to upgrade to some Weta style animatronics. Do they ever get that request? Is there somewhere in the same way as like when we ask advertising agencies on Gruen to do the pitch, often the people who are working on the big campaigns, they're not like coming to do that. They'll be like, oh, we've got these junior creatives. We've got these that we want to give like experience. It's like basically they get to give them a test run of how they would work on an actual campaign in something that doesn't have the same stakes, but still has some stakes, Yeah. So for them, is there a chance that Weta, there's like a group of young, ambitious, like people there that they would just be like, you know what? You guys just like, you can handle Ned Kelly and Glen Rowan.
I think so. I was thinking more because it's New Zealand, like, how all these millionaires are buying up, the billionaires are buying up like bunkers.
Yep.
Like maybe that's where it's more that's more your kind of Westworld sort of dystopian crossover where it's like, I'm going to pay you to create me a body that I can regenerate. I'm going to, we're working around the clock to download my consciousness. I want to live forever. Weta, create me a Jeff Bezos body that I can just, last forever. A titanium Bezos body.
Well, no, so I don't think that Bezos is going to settle for something this amateurish, right?
Rudimentary.
That's going to be this real sort of regenerative, like he wants to feel like a real human being, right? But you can't spend that sort of money on everyone. And the problem with living forever is that like, it's no good if you're the only person who's living forever. You've got to surround yourself with other people. What's the point of like living forever if there's, no one else around to share it with? But clearly you can't be investing those billions into every single person. So I imagine he picks a few people, like a few key, close circle where he's like, I'll also get you in at my level, maybe like his partner or children or something like that, where he's like, these are the people I want to grow old with. But then after that, you're really just filling out the bunker. And even like servants and guards, like Jeff Bezos doesn't want to like suddenly have to learn how to make his own breakfast. Like he needs someone to be doing that. So this is where I think and like, who would Jeff Bezos want? He's like, well, you know what? I've got to have a butler. You know who I want my butler to be? Abraham Lincoln. So, you know what I mean? Like, so this is what I imagine they're doing. He's like, I want my bed turned down every night by Benjamin Franklin. That's what I want.
Yeah.
You know who I love? Ben Kingsley. He's my butler.
Monty Python shall do the garden.
Yeah, right. The only one I like was Eric Idle. Get rid of the rest.
This was sent in by Glenn Foster back in January of last year. he says, "Hey guys, I just happened to be listening to episode 235, Introspective, today when you were discussing how Russell Crowe was not taking himself so seriously anymore, resulting in a new, warm, fuzzy, light-hearted Rusty who's all about Twitter bants, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I agree. Like new cuddly Russell Crowe championing social causes and being funny on Twitter and still doing, I will always retweet whenever he does one heart at a time repost to someone discovering one of his films. I'm always retweeting that shit.
Well, I have now watched his performance as Con the Zuzera in that horrible mess of a movie that was Love and Thunder, which I will say, I guess my expectations had been lowered because I'd heard from people that it wasn't amazing. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's a mess of a movie, but just as a series of scenes vaguely held together, it's super entertaining. But Russell Crowe's performance is one of the most outrageous things. It borders very much on the edge of being absolutely racist.
Imagine my surprise when back in the present day I came across a Guardian article which described Rusty's recent Twitter attack on a user who had the gall to label his film Master and Commander as a remedy for insomnia. No. Rusty retorted, "That's the problem with kids these days. No focus. Peter Weir's film is brilliant. An exacting, detail-oriented, epic tale of fidelity to empire and service. Regardless of the cost, incredible cinematography by Russell Boyd and a majestic soundtrack. Definitely an adults-only movie." Ooh, Rusty.
It's not particularly harsh, is it, though? What was the headline? What was the intro into this?
That they said it was a Master and Commander is a remedy for insomnia.
Yeah, but what did the article say? Did Russell Crowe shut them down or get into a Twitter spat?
Yeah, do you want me to get... Oh, well, I've got the link here. Do you want me to read it? Okay, so this is by Stuart Heritage. When film stars attack, Russell Crowe's reaction to criticism could set a trend. The actor's unexpected response to a complaint about an 18-year-old film could pave the way for more big-name actors to personally insult Twitter users. Okay. Oh, fuck. The children. Won't somebody think of the children?
The floodgates. It's a slippery slope.
Holy shit. One of the most surprising new avenues to reform for celebrities over the course of the pandemic has been Cameo. For the uninitiated, Cameo is a service where celebrities can create personalized messages for their fans. For £75, Hodor from Game of Thrones will wish you a happy birthday. Or, if you've got £750 lying around, Richard Dreyfuss will put on a Jaws shirt and struggle to pronounce your name.
I've
been asked to do Cameo. I'm sure they've come and asked you as well.
Yeah, they have. Of course they have. Yeah. But don't tell me that I have higher standards than Richard Dreyfuss. Don't tell me that Richard Dreyfuss needs the money more than I do. That's bad news.
It's funny.
You know why Richard Dreyfuss actually needs the money from Cameo?
Why?
His boat's not big enough. He's got to get a
bigger boat. The Cameo person who reached out to me, I think they reached out and I think I wasn't really thinking. They said, "Oh, we'd love to," and I said, "Okay, cool. Or sounds good." A very non-committal, thank you kind of response. And then I think they took that as like an interest because then they kept hitting me up with, "Hey, these are, if you want to chat, I've got these 3 times." And they sort of hit me up 3 times. And then it took a kind of like obsessed stalker girlfriend kind of tone, or it was like, "Hey, why are you dodging me?" And the looky eyes emoji and stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, this is too intense. I just wanted something casual. I wanted a fling. I'm not sure that if you're going to be like this before we've even slept together, I don't know that I want to get into a relationship with you."
Yeah, I must admit that I had the same level of, without wanting to diminish your specialness in the world of these things. Yeah. Oh my God. The full frontal attack of engagement and loveliness in a way that was incredibly flirtatious, and not just once, twice, but because I was I think the first time I just very politely said no, and then somebody else came along from the same company and was like, "Well, hey, this a bit." I think they gave me a bit of the sell of how good it would be for me, how it would be
nice.
And then I was like, "Okay, well now I'm going to explain to you why I do not believe that is the case." And I may have gone into some detail about how embarrassing I found it and how it was like, anyway, that I just was like, I'm not some monkey that would dance for money for people for this. So I said, you know what? Like if there's someone, because I remember this now. She said, it would be really nice if one of your fans wants like a birthday message or like it's a really special occasion, like they met at one of your shows. And I said to them, I was like, if that is the case, and that is the case sometimes, here's what happens. People email me or hit me up on something else and ask me to do it, and I do it for free because that is a nice thing to do for somebody and it doesn't take much of my time. But I'm not going to say, by the way, could you give me $75 for that? Anyway, they seemed a bit shocked by my response. And so then I was like, okay, I'm done. They've left me alone. Then a couple of weeks later, completely new person wanders in again, all just happy and flirtatious.
Yeah, because I had the same thing where I kind of said I didn't hear anything for a few months, and then it was like the conversation started again, and I thought, and then so I asked them the second time around. I said, "Are you a bot?" And they said no, and I said, "Prove it." And they said, "How can I prove it?" And I said, "Say something that a bot wouldn't say." And then I didn't hear anything, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that's done." I mean, I'm sure they have their too difficult basket, and I'm sure, like for the $1.50 cameos I'd be charging, I'm not worth it. Their cut would not be enough to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, again, if people want to do it, and like I've ordered cameos, like for people as fun, like I can see the fun in it. I'm not saying like people can do what they want to do, like but Richard Dreyfuss.
There's big stars on Cameo.
No, but
I'm sure Snoop Dogg is on Cameo.
I mean, I'm sure, of course, somebody's going to give him money to do something. He's there.
But maybe Cameo isn't enough for you. Maybe you want to find a direct engagement with a much bigger star than Cameo offers. And for free. Oh, this is Will Anderson. Maybe we get to Will Anderson territory. If that's the case, I can heartily endorse not liking a Russell Crowe movie. I don't like the tone of this article. Will, you with me?
Oh, absolutely with you. Particularly because I know what the response was, which seemed quite dignified and had a sense of humor about it, I thought.
Because even if it takes him a while, Crowe will do his best to respond to your criticism. And if you're really lucky, he'll sound like an out-of-touch bus stop crackpot in the process.
Okay. Is there another tweet we haven't got to?
Well, we'll get into it. Like Ricky Gervais clearly name searches himself and loves to get into a back and forth. I have not noticed that. I follow Russell and I always take note of his tweets. I haven't noticed Gervais-like behavior.
I would like to know what's going on in Ricky Gervais's life. Do you think he has friends? It feels to me like he doesn't have somebody to say to him.
I remember an interview that Simon Pegg did years ago, like in the 2000s, sort of after Shaun of the Dead, because they had done a sketch comedy show together at some point. And I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember thinking, that's very telling. Like the interview said something like, "Oh, and you're on this show with, Ricky Gervais. Like, how was that? Could you imagine he would go on, to be such a star?" And the comment was something like the lines of, "It didn't matter if Ricky thought he was going to be a big star." It was like a line like that made me go, "Oh yeah, he seems." Like you look at Steve Merchant now and you see the things that Steve Merchant does separate from Ricky Gervais and what Ricky Gervais's work has lost as a result of that. And you're like, oh yeah, that would have been unbearable. If you've seen any of the behind the scenes making ofs of The Office, it's like, I mean, he's an incredibly talented performer and that, David Brent, I'm not saying it's not one of the greatest comedy characters of all time.
Yeah, but it was probably a little closer to Ricky's real personality than we imagined it was. And that's why it's so good. It's why it's so convincing because he just dialed up the Ricky, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because searching the internet for your name, when you are absolutely one of the biggest comedians in the world, one of the richest celebrities going around, a person who can do any project that they want to do and hobnob with anyone that they want to hobnob with. And you are sitting if I was I'm getting off social media myself now anyway, but if I was Ricky Gervais, why would you be on social media? What's the point of that? And then why would you search your own name? Because he does. You don't have enough in your @replies to respond to. He's actually searching down tweets that he's not tagged into, that nobody has alerted to. It just has his name in them.
Yeah. There is that world of online that stuns me. you'll see YouTube beefs, like beefs between different YouTubers. And Ricky Gervais, I remember once called someone out for bagging him about something and hadn't used his hashtag, hasn't used his handle, just used his name. But Ricky had name searched himself and found it, and then accused the guy of being a coward. And I'm like, but in what, like under what metric? Like in the Twitter universe, what is cowardly? You know what I mean? Like the whole fact is like you have created, this was a drama that did not need to happen. Like this is, there was,
it didn't need to happen, like basically, because also this, like how rich and successful do you need to be? Like you're not running for office. No comedy in the entire world, particularly edgy and interesting comedy, which is what he prides himself on, if it was universally accepted as being good or acceptable, it wouldn't be edgy or confrontational or whatever the fuck he thinks he's doing. So he's actually constantly trying to defeat his own argument. He's the one telling us how edgy he is and, all these sort of things. And then he gets mad when people find him like edgy or boring or like whatever. Like I'm like, what horrible. It's almost like this is the price that he's had to pay for the Faustian bargain that he's made for the success of his career. Like they've come to this less successful but totally ambitious young comedian has done a deal with the devil, and he's like, you can make one of the most influential comedy shows of all time and have a career, like that will be in the envy of most of your peers, but in return you can never be happy. Every time your name is written, you will get a Google alert that you cannot turn off, and you will have to go online and respond to it.
Who was saying to me that they've been going to therapy, and
it's why he's so telling people that God's not real.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, too much. It's too much, man. You're covering it up for a deal you've done with the
Someone
devil.
was telling me they've been going back to therapy, and that the therapist, when they went to the session, was, seemed a bit kind of flustered. And he was like, oh, is everything okay? And she's like, oh, just like, there are so many narcissists in the world. 90% of my business is narcissists. Like that's all I get through the door these days is just narcissists. And I'm like, well, maybe that's the era we're in. Maybe that's the real pandemic. Yeah.
Narcissism is the real pandemic. I mean, I think it kind of is, but also, of course there's like more narcissists. We're literally in a world where we're doing something that is essentially narcissistic, right? Like we are now in a world where we don't have to wait for gatekeepers to tell us you can have a radio show. We'll just have our own show and we'll talk about things and people will find it interesting. That in itself, and everything is broadcast. Like, podcast, YouTube's, Instagram, like TikTok, whatever. Everybody's being told that you should be creating stuff or filming stuff or telling people where you are right now. Like that's important. So every single thing that everyone's being raised on is like essentially like forming you into being a narcissist. So of course it makes complete sense.
On January 9, Ian McNabb, frontman of the Icicle Works, wrote the following about the 2003 Master and Commander film, The Far Side of the World. Lots of folk are complaining about lack of sleep during the pandemic. May I recommend Master and Commander, starring the usually captivating, attention-grabbing Russell Crowe. I've never made it past the 10-minute mark.
Okay.
You're welcome, and thanks, Russell. The tweet began to pick up steam, and just 9 days later, had found its way to Crowe himself. Now, Russell Crowe is a very famous man who has about 3 million followers, which is peanuts compared to The Rock.
Low.
The Rock has like 335 million, like more than the population of the United States follow The Rock. However,
I mean, I've got 500,000 and I don't try. I just retweet shit. Like, come on.
However,
Russ.
Despite this, he was unable to let the criticism sit. Instead, he narkily replied, as we know, that's the problem with kids these days.
Is it narkily though?
I'll read it. I'll do it again.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the problem with kids these days. No focus. Peter Weir's film is brilliant. An exacting, detail-oriented, epic tale of fidelity to empire and service, regardless of the cost. Incredible cinematography by Russell Boyd and a majestic soundtrack. Definitely an adult's movie. I don't think it's that snarky. You know what it is? It's like it's a film. It's defensive. Like it defends the subject of attack. He doesn't talk about himself at all because he was named as being kind of boring. He doesn't say "fuck you."
It actually, to be honest, it actually is like it's more like just like a blurb.
Yeah, it sounds like he got it from the EPK.
Yeah, I think he's just copy and pasted that.
As it happens, both parties were wrong here. Master and Commander was a perfectly adequate film. Now that's fucking snarky. That's snarky, bloody Stuart heritage. A perfectly adequate. It's so British too. That is the most British insult you'll ever get. It's perfectly adequate.
It's perfectly adequate. Thank you.
Glad your queen's dead or died. Not enough time will have passed.
We're cancelled.
By the time this comment comes out,
it will not. The coverage will still be 24/7, regardless of when this episode comes out. We're never hearing anything but the Queen's dead for the rest of our lives.
Master and Commander was a perfectly adequate film, although I'd be surprised if anyone thought about it in a meaningful way from the moment the credits ended. But the important thing is that Crowe reacted. So, by the way, Ian McNabb, the person who wrote the original tweet, responded to Russell saying, "Thanks, Russell. I'm 60, but I get your point. Love, Unhinged, greetings from Liverpool."
Well, that seems like a lovely exchange between two adults.
Yeah.
Right. Even like I love that he responded in a fun way. He didn't, he joined it, like he kind of laughed he got that Russell was making a bit of a joke and he laughed it off and pointed out that he was 60. That seemed like a fun interaction.
This article has the tone of like Sydney Confidential trying to drum up bad blood between two reality stars.
Yeah.
Then they said this and then they snapped back this. Onlookers said no. So again, this is back to Stuart, the journalist. Again, not much new there. He reacted to BAFTA editing a poem out of an acceptance speech by pinning a television executive to a wall.
So he's gone back to the poem though. This is like 10 years ago. There's got to be a
longer. This is more like 20 years ago.
It's got to be a statute of limitations on like the throwing the.
Mate, I don't know. Are you not sure how cancel culture works? They can fucking dig up. I mean, John Wayne did an interview in 1957 where he used the N-word. And people were like, he's racist. It's like, and also it was 1957. Everyone
even
was
for
racist.
then, he was pretty racist. But like that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Okay. So he reacted. He pinned the television executive to the wall and called him a motherfucker. He reacted to Paul Hotel telephone.
Yes.
Sorry, Paul, not Paul Hotel.
Paul Hotel.
So it's getting late. He reacted to poor hotel telephone coverage by throwing a telephone at the clerk's face. This time it is different because he did it on Twitter.
All right. And also because this is very
it's not
different.
Even.
This comment is different for every reason.
It's so different. Like,
I'm getting angry. I'm
going to write a snarky tweet to bloody Stuart fucking, what is his name? Stuart Heritage.
Yeah, well, you know who a motherfucker is? Stuart Heritage. He's the motherfucker here.
This time it is different because he did it on Twitter by the means of a kids these days rant. Yeah, that is precisely.
And again,
why it's fucking different.
It's definitely different, and also not a rant. Like he literally, like playfully says it's not for children; it's an adult's like movie, and then just does a blurb about the movie.
Okay, so he's getting to his point now, Stuart, and this is brilliant. He begins this next paragraph. He begins very confidently.
It's gone from being perfectly adequate to brilliant.
Adequate. This is brilliant. This is confirmation that Crowe is willing to share his generalized biases with the world, and all you have to do is have an opinion on one of his films. Perhaps you could write that Cinderella. I'm gonna have to do his voice because he's fucking bugging me so much. Perhaps you could write that Cinderella Man felt like such a deliberate piece of Oscar bait that it failed to be emotionally captivating, or that A Good Year felt shallow and redundant compared to its previous television adaptations, or that the promotional campaign for Unhinged was more entertaining than the film itself. Either way, there's now a good chance that Russell Crowe will respond by saying, "In my day, children were taught to be seen but not heard," or we never used to wash our hands after going to the toilet when I was growing up. Never. What the fuck is going on?
This guy is a fucking idiot. That's what I've learned. This is a journalist having a breakdown. He's written an article about a hypothetical scenario where you could troll Russell Crowe and then how Russell Crowe might hypothetically respond because there's nothing in the original response.
I hypothetically respond like a grumpy grandparent. We never used to wash our hands in the day after going to the toilet when I was growing up. Never did me any harm. Is it just me or a wagon wheel's getting smaller?
I feel like these are complaints that Stuart already had pinned to his desk, and he's like, I've got to get these in a fucking article.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Like, he has extrapolated from, like you said, a relatively dignified and back and forth. Like, I mean, compared to what people say to each other on Twitter, like, this is
Twitter. This is the mildest.
This is like Jared Waitley getting angry with someone. This could have huge repercussions. After all, Crowe is so influential that dozens of stars might start joining in. It would be the Twitter equivalent of the law of attraction.
What?
Tell the universe.
This is entirely
The Guardian.
speculation.
This is The Guardian.
This is a real... Yes, this is a yes and
It's
situation.
the Twitter equivalent of the law of attraction. Tell the universe that you didn't entirely love a film made 18 years ago, and the universe will tell the star to inform you that you're incorrect. That's not how the law of attraction even fucking works.
Is this like a comedy article? Is this like a parody piece? Maybe it's a parody.
Perhaps rolling your eyes at Bruce Almighty will bring Jim Carrey to your door. Perhaps frowning at Hulk will make Eric Banner say hello to you. Perhaps, if you're really mean about Made in Manhattan, Ralph Fiennes will create a Twitter account specifically to call you a prick. It must be a comedy. Do you think? If it is, it's not funny.
I mean, if it is, it's buried it pretty deep.
Anyway, Crowe is right. Kids these days are to blame for everything. Kids have got no attention spans. Kids only like superhero movies. Kids can't sit through the ponderously slow film about boats because they'd rather be watching an unboxing video on YouTube. Kids won't watch a film that doesn't have sequels, even if it's been deliberately titled to make it look like the first part of a new and exciting maritime franchise. Kids eat candy. Kids make too much noise. Kids are responsible for everything bad in the world. Ian McCabe is 60 years old. That's not, he didn't write that last bit. That was me just interpreting. But fuck this guy. Fuck this article.
Fuck this guy.
That is shit. That is shit journalism. Shit journalism, shit everything.
Or shit comedy. It's one of the two. It's shit comedy or shit journalism, but either way it's shit.
I've gone to this journalist's Twitter account, and I'm not going to give it out because we're not. This is no bloody news agent. But I'm just having a quick scroll through. He's got 50, almost 40,000 followers on Twitter.
And is he a comedian? What does it say in his blurb? What's his little description? Does it say like columnists or journalists or?
No, it just said. It's a joke. Okay. His bio just says bald.
Yeah, but again,
so
all right.
Clearly, he's got a book. I'm just looking on the book. How to not be funny.
Well, he's nailed it then. Okay.
It's a kid's book. It's called a kid's book, right. Jonathan the Magic Pony. Okay, so he's written a couple, just little tweets. September 14th, he wrote, "Can't wait to tell my grandchildren that we became a republic after the Great Centre Park riots of 2022. If for anyone, this is from September 12th, for anyone planning the protocol following my own death, the London landmark I would like to use as a code name is Eminem's World."
So still no evidence whether he's a comedian or not.
Okay, so what if I say, hang on. I'm brokenhearted to say that I saw a band play tribute to the Queen with a tweet comprising white text on a dark blue background rather than the traditional black. This flippancy will not stand.
Well, he's a humorist? He's a humorist.
September 8th. In situations like this, I always feel bad for the fast twitch internet comedians in front of their ring lights paralyzed with fear. Is that the most telling tweet so far?
Okay. So, yeah, well, he looks down his nose at comedy, though. Like, he's a humorist. He's in that world of, like, I think I'm very funny, but I sneer at all other comedy.
Oh, goodness gracious me. I think he's a TV reviewer. I don't want to click any one of his links. Oh,
okay, no.
That was horrible, but
you.
Great bit of content. Thanks for sending that in, Glenn.
You.
Like, makes me love Russell Crowe even more and dislike the British press, Will. The British press. You can't trust them. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode. Before we do that, I'm just going to plug a couple of things. One is our Patreon. That's the best way to support this show. Keeps the lights on, enables us to pay our bills, pay James Fosdyke, pay Podcast Mike. So you can do that at patreon.com/TOFOP. And there's a bunch of bonus content up there. Heaps of bonus episodes recorded, comic strips, Quantum Cop, Everyone Relax comic strips, behind the scenes photos and art. So that gets updated really regularly too. So check all that stuff out and then go to tofop.com. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can. There's a contact page on the splash page and you can check out TOFOP. You can check out Two Guys, One Cup, which I know is over now, but might as well go back. We don't really talk about football. It's not like you need to have watched the games on the weekend. And then, of course, FOFOP, where Will and I alternate with special guests. Will, what have you got to promote?
I have a book. It's called I Am Not Fine, Thanks, and it will be available I think also as an audiobook. I am planning to have to read my book out loud to record it for an audiobook, but so it'll be available either in print form on your devices, I believe. I don't know. I assume you'll be able to read it on a Kindle or fucking whatever, and it'll be an audiobook as well. And I also have a TV show that is on the ABC. It's called Question Everything. You can find it on ABC TV and ABC iView for older episodes.
And that is TOFOP for this week. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
How long? Not long. Everyone relax. Fucking stupid.
This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
Cool things for cool people.